everybody, it's Not Your Average Josh back here for another movie review today, and it is for the new release, The Lord of the Rings, The War of Rohirrim, the new anime Lord of the Rings movie taking place about a couple hundred years before the events in the original trilogy. Before I get into my review, I do want to say if you're watching this, I do appreciate any support I get. This is still a very small channel, just doing this. It's my passion to talk about movies and anything related to that. So I do appreciate any support I get. You can follow me on any of these social media platforms. I pretty much just post about this channel, really. This is, again, the main thing I focus on. You can also hit that like button, leave a comment down below, and also hit the subscribe button if you enjoy this content and want to see some more. Also, hit that notification bell as well. But let's go ahead and get into this review. Now, when it comes to The Lord of the Rings, I am very basic knowledge when it comes to the whole lore of everything. I've never read any of Tolkien's books. The only thing I've seen is the main original trilogy and the Hobbit trilogy. That's pretty much the only thing I know. I did not even see the older animated movie that came out years ago, I think in the 80s. So I am pretty just basic knowledge when it comes to all this stuff. I've always liked, of course, the original trilogy, and I think I like the Hobbit movies a little more than the majority of the general audience. I think I would say I really did enjoy those movies. So when it comes to this movie, not a world that I know incredibly much about, but the animation looked pretty good from the trailers, and getting a chance to visit another part of this world and another time before all the events take place, there's always a level of interest there that is going to pique my interest with this movie. But was this movie good? Is it a worthy entry into the world of The Lord of the Rings? Let's go ahead and get into it. This film is directed by Kenji Kamiyama. He is a very respected person in anime. He has wrote on, directed plenty of anime stuff over the years. He's been around in the business for a very long time. So it is no surprise to say that this movie looks incredible at times and also just feels like a very classic anime and feels very appropriate for this world. I did like the mix that we had here. You also get several people involved with the writing here, the screenplay and the story by Jeffrey Addis, Will Matthews, Philippa Boyens, Artie Papagiorgio, and Phoebe Gittins, all involved with the writing in this movie. And with a movie like this, dealing with so much different elements going on here with the animation that they have at play here, and also with the story, it definitely made sense that there was several writers involved here. It wasn't one of those situations where it's like, oh man, too many cooks in the kitchen. It definitely felt like something that was appropriate and right. You also get a pretty nice voice cast here. No one really too notable besides Brian Cox in terms of that the general audience is going to jump out of their seats. One of the things I really did enjoy about this movie is you get Miranda Otto back as Éowyn in this movie. Of course, if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, you're going to know that name immediately. She was in, of course, the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, and just having her be in this just kind of adding to that kind of legacy casting, I guess you'll say. I thought it was really nice and really cool to see her in this. You also even get Billy Boyd, who played Pippin in the original trilogy, and Dominic Monaghan, I believe that's how you say his name, sorry if I butchered it. He played Merry in the original trilogy, and you also even get another surprise cameo by someone who is playing the exact same character they played in the original trilogy. I will not spoil that. If you happen to be a Lord of the Rings fan, you don't want to get spoiled if you have not seen the movie yet. But they do a fair amount of fan service in this movie that never takes away from the story or anything that I really did appreciate overall. But let's go ahead and get into the main bulk of this review. Overall, I'll go ahead and cut to the chase. I really did enjoy my time with this movie. It pretty much met and I think surpassed in some areas my expectations, but also didn't quite meet my expectations in other areas. First off, one of the big things with this movie is how the animation looks. I think at times it looks breathtaking. There is some beautiful shots. There is so many shots throughout this movie where you feel like you're in a live action movie. Like, it looks that beautiful. The textures are fully realized and just feel like tangible places that you can go to. But then for about, I'd say almost half the movie, the effects do look a little off, wonky, maybe a little outdated as well. I don't know what it quite was, if maybe they just had too much going on. There is so much animation to do in this movie. Really, the main story of this is this whole entire war that is going on. And I just thought there was moments where there'd be characters standing on certain surfaces, like a mountain or something, or grass even, or just interacting with certain things where the animation just did not look good really at all. It felt like it's just something from like the early 2000s or something. but then there'd be other moments where it looked amazing. So it was a little bit of a mixed bag when it came to that. And also, I didn't mention, if you don't know what this movie is about, the basic description for this is you have this king played by Brian Cox who is a little bit arrogant, a little bit just a touch full of himself, but overall seems like a pretty good king from the beginning. But you really get right into it with this movie. Without spoiling too much, you have this inciting incident that happens where this other character, Wolf, is very offended by what the king does, and that's where you really start this feud, this basically lifelong rivalry from this point on, and leads to this war of the Rohirrim, which, by the way, I still don't quite know what the Rohirrim is in this movie. They mentioned it a couple times, and I might have missed it just within the dialogue in the movie. I know there's this war going on, and I understand everything about it and why it's taking place, but I don't really understand where the Rohirrim comes in at. And I'm probably still not even saying it name right, but so I'm still a little confused by that. So maybe if you know what really that the Rohirrim is in this movie, you can go ahead and leave in the comments below. But other than that, I overall really did enjoy this story. I think it's a very classic tale of just two groups of people fighting for a long period of time just based off one incident that happens, and it just spirals out of control, and now you have this huge war going on. And I thought it captured it really well. I thought the animation in this movie, as I mentioned, I kind of already talked about some times where the effects didn't look so good. The fighting scenes were all pretty well done though, and even the hand-to-hand combat, that was some of the best stuff. Really felt very visceral, like you were in the fight, and I was very much on the edge of my seat a few times in some of those sequences. And overall, the action itself was shot very well. That's really the majority of this movie. It's a lot of war stuff going on, a lot of battle sequences, and it just really hit me very well. I felt like I was in the mood for a movie like this, and I didn't even really know it until about 15-20 minutes into the movie. I'm like, oh man, you know what? I was like really wanting something like this. It's been a minute since I've just seen, especially an animation like this. I do enjoy anime when it comes to that. That is another thing where I'm a little bit, got a little blind side to a lot of anime. I grew up, I watched some Dragon Ball Z, but that is pretty much for the most part it on any like shows. There's some anime movies that I've checked out, but I'm very beginner with a lot of that stuff. So I don't know a lot of the technical terms with it, and that's also another reason I don't really know the reason why some of the animation didn't look so good for me in this movie. So maybe if you're more up on anime, maybe all the technical aspects of how you put anime together compared to other animation, on maybe why some of the technical elements didn't quite land in certain parts in this movie. But overall, again, the fighting was really good. Where the story goes with the characters, I think there's enough characters to latch onto that I was pretty invested throughout the whole time. Again, it's mainly focused between this rivalry between your main king and then this character Wolf, who is into the daughter of the king, Hera, who is a really good character. I thought Hera, I guess she's basically the lead of this movie. The kind of the main heart you're following, and she was a good character. Wasn't great, but there was enough there where I was invested in her and wanting to see her succeed. And by the end of this movie, I'm just more on her side. You also do have a few moments here where I actually got legitimate chills with some of the sequences they have in this movie. I think it's a little over 2 hours. I think about 2 hours and 15 minutes, the movie, and you do feel the length, but it doesn't ever feel like it's extending its runtime too much. I think everything that's in here just kind of fits the story they're telling. It's really this long, kind of drawn out couple battles, a war really. As I said, it's really just fun to watch and hard to watch at times. Like, it's a PG-13 movie, so they definitely go towards that line of rated R, and if they showed a couple more things in some key moments, this definitely, I feel like, would have gotten the rated R treatment. It's a pretty serious movie for animation as well, but anime, you know, sometimes that leans that way compared to other animation anyway. With the character Wolf here, who I thought was played really well by Luca Pasqualino, I believe that's how you say his name. I thought he did a really good job playing this character. But with the character itself, I liked how he had some complexities about him. Like, at the beginning of the movie, the incident that happens, and if you've seen the trailer, they kind of basically give it away, but I'm going to go ahead and just continue to not spoil it here, but just in case you haven't seen it. But there's an incident that happens at the beginning of this movie that pits Wolf and the King of Rohan, Helm, against each other. And I was on his side for this, because I thought the king, he's a very complex character. Like, he does certain things where you're like, okay, he's a good king. He seems like a pretty honorable good guy that's good for ruling people, has that commanding force. But then he'll do some other things where you're like, okay, that's completely out of line, that's completely over the top, but you're like not showing any grace towards anybody other than like someone that you might care about. Like, it just shows himself to be a little bit, again, arrogant at times, stubborn, and in all the wrong moments, especially in a couple times in this movie where I'm just like, yeah, I'm definitely not on your side. But then Wolf will do some things as the movie goes on where it's just like, this isn't really spoiling anything, but basically the whole movie he's trying to get with the daughter, and that's where a lot of the problems lie in this whole issue going on here that leads to a war. And she just the whole time does not want to be with him. She doesn't want to be with anybody. She does not in love with anybody. She just wants to be independent on her own. It makes sense. And he's just this whole time is frustrated with her and I'm pissed at her that she doesn't love him back, and is like basically pissed and wanting to almost kill her at different times just for the simple fact that she rejected him. And so from then on, I'm just like, okay, yeah, this Wolf character, I pretty much can't do anything with you. He just was pretty much just, he was just gone for me at that point. But I liked how it showed his character's descent and his just pure on just wanting vengeance no matter what cost. He just full on, like he doesn't want happiness anymore. Like he's not at that level where as soon as he gets his revenge, then he can finally be at peace. He doesn't want peace. He even mentions it in the movie in one of his lines that he gives. Like he wants vengeance now just for vengeance sake. He is like just driven that way, and so it just really shows you the kind of mindset that he has and why this war, one of the reasons why the war continues to drag on, and you get all this personal loss, and it just really feels like an epic movie. A little bit longer for an animated movie, I suppose, but it definitely felt like everything was appropriate that was in this. I don't think I would have cut anything. There is a moment near the second and third act of the movie with the king I'm a little confused by still. I don't know what was actually going on here, if he was a certain way or another way. Again, don't want to spoil it. So there's a little part of that kind of stumped me a little bit. And then the animation was a huge thing that held me back from giving this a higher score. It is like, at times, it feels like about half the movie where like the animation just doesn't look that good. Like, just not that they didn't complete it, but it's just there's some it's like they just didn't do as good of a job. It was kind of a little bit puzzling at times, and it took me out just for like a couple seconds every now and then when it would happen, but for the most part I was still engaged with the story and everything. And there was also just great beautiful shots in the movie too, so it wasn't all a complete shit show. So it was a little bit of a weird thing that kind of definitely affected my experience but didn't completely tank it or anything like that. But those are kind of the two main issues or mixed things I have with the movie. I think everything else, the movie plays out in a way that is satisfying by the time you get to the end of it. It shows you the brutality of war, the idea of honor, the idea of what it means to go to war, family, loss. Like it touches on all these themes, I think, in a really nice, cool way. And to be introduced in another chapter in this Lord of the Rings lore and world that we are a part of. And it was really cool to also be like 200 years before is not as far in the Lord of the Rings world, compared to like the original trilogy, I think. So they do make some connections there with that. And I will say one thing: they if you've seen the trailer, they kind of try and hint that there's more to do with the original trilogy in this movie, which there really isn't. There's this one little brief moment they give fans. There was like, okay, they're shouting it out to that, but it had nothing to do with the main story at all. So there's just light touches with stuff we already know within this world, but nothing that ever really affects the story. And I really like that. Like we had really just one full independent story here. I think if you're a person who doesn't really know anything about Lord of the Rings, you could probably get into this movie and be really your entry point into the world. And if you like it enough, maybe you can go and watch the original trilogy then after that, because there's really nothing in this movie that relies on any other prior knowledge you might need to know. And I really enjoyed that, especially with, again, being an animated movie. It can be kind of a nice entry point for someone. Maybe you like anime, but you never really got into Lord of the Rings, and this movie just hits you in a nice way. But yeah, I thought it was pretty bloody at times, fun action, especially the hand-to-hand stuff, like I said. And the music was really good. That's pretty much mostly my main thoughts. I think if you're a fan of Lord of the Rings, there will be some enjoyment with this. I was the only one in the theater. When I went, it was the opening night, as I'm recording this Thursday night when it's coming out. And so yeah, it doesn't look like it's going to do that good, along with Craven, which I was supposed to see tonight, didn't end up seeing. I'm going to probably see that tomorrow night. I guess we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, it looks like both of these movies are probably not going to do that well. Probably going to be another weekend where like Wicked and Moana 2 owns the box office, which I don't mind much. I mean, I love Wicked. And still haven't seen Moana 2 because I haven't really been starting this channel yet again. But Anyway, I hope enough people do see this and find some appreciation of it, because I have a feeling it's probably going to be on VOD here pretty soon, and but so be it. I think you should check it out if you're a Lord of the Rings fan at all. Check it out at some point, even if it's on streaming. I think it's a really cool, fun experience. There's also where this main battle ends up on. You basically have an origin for a pretty notable place in the Lord of the Rings world as well. It'd be cool to see more things like this, especially from this world. And one of the best things I can say too is this movie really, after watching, I really want to almost dive more into Tolkien's actual work and get a little more into this world, because it is pretty fascinating when you're watching a story like this go down, and you can be invested in the way. And it's just nice when you have a lush world where you can have so many different possibilities of different stories and everything going on. So I had a really good time with this movie, and I'm going to give Lord of the Rings War of the Rohirrim a 8 out of 10. Definitely would have been higher if it hadn't been for the little animation. Again, just being clunky at different times is really the main thing, besides the other mixed thing I had. That was really the only main negative I had. So what do you guys think? Are you planning on going to see this movie? Are you a Lord of the Rings fan? What is your favorite Lord of the Rings movie? Do you like the show Rings of Power? I've never gotten into that show yet. That could be something I maybe want to get into now. When it first came out, season 1, there were so many people just kind of shitting on it, and I was just like, I don't know if I want to waste my time getting into it. But then I've heard season 2 is one of the biggest turnarounds for a show in recent memory, so I might end up checking it out and getting through that first season so I can try and get to some good in the second one. But you can also leave a like and hit that subscribe button as well if you want to support this channel. Any support is very much appreciated. I'm, again, just doing this as a passion. As I've said many times before, I'm really getting back into it. Going to be going harder than ever with this channel, just pumping out videos and just having fun talking about movies and TV shows and whatnot. You can also follow me on any of these social medias that should be on the screen now. Just follow me on any of those. I pretty much only post about stuff relating to this channel. There should be other movie reviews coming out soon. Sonic 3 is coming out next week. Mufasa. Of course, I said Craven already. I got a Christmas movie that I reviewed that is going to be coming out, and also my top 10 Christmas movies of all time. So we got several videos still planned for the rest of this month and moving forward. So again, I appreciate all the support, and I will talk to you guys on the flip side.